Hi there. I'm Bree Rhodes. I'm the Director of Math, Science, and STEM on the Academic Content team, and I'm here to present the Super App launch session for 2021-2022, supporting high-quality science instruction through curriculum and professional development. This is just the Super App timeline for you. Note that to access all of the 2021-2022 Super App and school system planning materials, they can be found on the department's School Improvement Library. And to access the presentation recordings, including the recording of this session, you can click on that image on the slide. For this particular session, the objectives are the school system planning teams will understand the high quality science curriculum and professional development options eligible in Super App, and the logistics to access, pricing, and additional information. Also, that school system planning teams will understand science content leaders and the funding eligible in Super App. In preparation for the 2021-2022 school year, school system leaders and school leaders across the state are building plans to improve their schools. In order to achieve this vision, leaders of improving schools assure that these things are true. Number one, all students learn grade level content alongside their peers. Students with unfinished learning are provided additional support. High school students have graduation plans aligned to coursework and credentials relevant to life after high school. Groups of teachers, including core, special education, English language, and reading interventionists, collaborate weekly. An established instructional leadership team meets weekly, focused on improving student outcomes through systems and structures. And lastly, all educators and students are afforded equitable access to opportunities in the learning environment and treated with dignity and respect. Improving schools implement 3 foundational structures to drive professional and student growth. Instructional leadership teams develop a long-range plan for improving educator and student outcomes. Learning communities are established to provide weekly collaboration time for groups of teachers, including core, special education, English language, and reading interventionists. Observation and feedback cycles led by the instructional leadership team are frequent and cyclical. As shown on this graphic here on this slide, each leader within the school plays a role in supporting teachers to improve outcomes for their students. Here you'll see depicted an image that shows the structure of the school system planning framework. On the top row, you'll notice that is a domain. There are 4 domains that encompass the department's most important priorities, which are core academics, students with diverse needs, workforce talent, and LEA systems. Underneath that, it's subdivided with a focus area and an indicator. And then lastly, if you look at the final row, there is the question number of the particular question in Super App, the question itself, and then 3 different forms of guidance that provide support in answering the question. We're going to talk about 3 specific questions today in Super App that relate to science. First, in core academics, school systems should identify each curriculum they plan to use in CIR or UIR academic schools in a separate row, adding rows if necessary. If different curricula are used in non-CIR and or non-UIR academic schools, check the box and list the curricula that differ. In order to be eligible for optional competitive funding for science, school systems with CIR or UIR academic schools should identify a high quality curriculum. We'll talk a little bit more about those options in just a few moments. Next, also on core academics, school systems should select a high quality professional development vendor in the PD vendor guide for this question. Next, in the workforce talent domain, focus area is educator leadership and support. You'll find another question related to science. This is the question for science content leader. In order to be eligible for optional competitive funding for science, school systems with CIR or UIR academic schools should indicate the total number of staff they plan to send to science content leader training, at CIR schools and at UIR academic schools. For today's agenda, we're going to talk about high quality science curriculum and professional development and science content leader before we close. Because school systems are committed to getting high quality instructional materials for their students and teachers, it's crucial to understand what separates high quality from low quality. So the following shifts should be the highest priority when selecting instructional materials. These are shifts of the Louisiana Student Standards for Science. First, applying content knowledge. Content knowledge is critical, and it's evident in the standards and the disciplinary core ideas. These are the key ideas in science that have broad importance within or across multiple science or engineering disciplines. However, we know that simply having content knowledge is not enough. Students must investigate and apply content knowledge to scientific phenomena. So the next shift is investigate, evaluate, and reason scientifically. Scientists do more than learn about science. They do science. Science instruction must integrate the practices or behaviors of scientists and engineers as they investigate real-world phenomena and design solutions to problems. Lastly, the final shift is connecting ideas across disciplines. For students to develop a coherent and scientifically based view of the world, they must make connections across the domains of science, like life science, physical, earth and space, environmental. The cross-cutting concepts have applications across all domains. On this slide, you'll note the following high-quality science instructional materials that are most closely aligned to the Louisiana Student Standards for Science and that will be prioritized via Super App. Please note that this list is as of the time of this recording, November 2020. If additional science curricula are identified as Tier 1 through our instructional materials review process throughout the year, they will be added to this list and prioritized as well. You'll see a hyperlink on this slide that takes you to a document that we will update continuously. This is the same high quality science curriculum document that is found as a resource within Super App, and it is also linked for your convenience on the K-12 science planning page. In addition to high quality curriculum, in order to be eligible to receive optional science funding, school systems who request funding for curriculum are required to also identify professional development from vendors in the PD vendor guide. Note that detailed information for PD for high quality pilots links out from the PD vendor guide to the science planning page. That can be found in the table of contents of the PD vendor guide under the science section. Next, we'll talk about science content leader. Teachers are most effective when they have access to a high quality curriculum, ongoing professional development that helps them use that curriculum effectively, and data from a limited number of standards aligned, non-summative assessments that measure how well students are meeting the outcomes of the high quality curriculum. As such, a key goal of the Louisiana Content Leader Initiative is to provide content-rich and curriculum-specific professional development. The second key goal of the Content Leader Initiative is to create a leadership pathway for talented local educators. The following are key goals of the Science Content Leader program. First, science content leaders deeply understand the Louisiana Student Standards for Science and the associated shifts we talked about a moment ago, as well as the vision for science education that was set forth by a framework for K-12 science education. Second, science content leaders deeply understand the essential elements of high-quality science curriculum. Essential elements of high-quality science curriculum include explaining phenomena and designing solutions to provide purpose and opportunity for learning, three-dimensional teaching and learning to develop and apply understanding, and authentic engagement in reading, writing, and speaking to develop scientific literacy. Third, science content leaders are highly prepared to employ pedagogical strategies and classroom routines to effectively implement high-quality science curriculum. Instructional routines that support students in building scientific knowledge and skills include a focus on promoting coherence from a student perspective, moving student ideas forward through meaningful and productive discourse, integrating the three dimensions to support students' incremental sense-making, and supporting equity for all students to learn and do science. Finally, science content leaders apply best practices of adult learning and content expertise to lead effective professional development for educators in the region, to foster a culture among their teachers that's supportive of adult learning and improvement, and to support colleagues in common planning. If you're familiar with math or the ELA content leader initiatives, science content leader is structured similarly. This training supports educators in deepening their understanding of the content pedagogy, and the curriculum through 9 days of training in 6 modules that are designed as unit and lesson studies. Participants will have access to all of the modules to redeliver to their colleagues on campus. And additionally, these science content leaders will gain key strategies and knowledge for supporting colleagues in meaningful unit and lesson preparation during common planning time. You'll see pictured here on this slide an image from the planning guide for science instruction that content leaders will utilize not only in their training, but back on campus to support thoughtful and meaningful unpacking of units and lessons. Participants have an opportunity to earn a science content leader distinction through a series of micro-credentials called the Science Content Leader Assessment Series through Bloomboard. Competencies include building understanding through phenomenon-based instruction, teaching for 3-dimensional learning, and supporting student sense-making through productive discussion. CIR schools are required to have a math and ELA content leader. CIR and UIRA schools may also request optional competitive funds for a science content leader. Consult the Mentor Teacher Content Leader Vendor Guide. It's linked on this slide and also included as a resource in Super App for details on training, pricing, and contact information for each approved vendor. At this time, you'll see the approved vendors listed on this slide. School systems may request up to $3,000 for one science content leader to be trained at each CIR or UIR academic school where there is not currently a trained science content leader. The department reviews applications and recommends organizations that demonstrate the expertise to deliver high-quality training to BESI twice a year. The approved mentor and content leader list will be updated in April and October following BESI's review of new programs. Please note that for additional information on content leader, there is also a Super App launch training titled Mentor Teacher and Content Leader Trainings and Policy that you may view. And in closing, in summary, school systems with CIR and UIRA schools may request funding for high-quality science curriculum, professional development on that curriculum, and science content leader training. This slide contains Super App support information. All Super App launch presentations and recordings, as a reminder, can be accessed via our School Improvement Library, which is linked on this slide. Please note that during November, December, and January, regularly scheduled team monthly calls and office hours will provide opportunities for school system leaders to learn more about specific sections, ask questions, and receive guidance. New this year, the department will offer Super App planning support calls beginning in December, where teams can request one-on-one targeted guidance and support with planning, completing the workbook, and aligning funding to priorities. Please contact ldoe.grantshelpdesk@la.gov with questions. It has been a pleasure presenting to you all today. I wish we could be together in person. Thank you so much for joining me.